Now, with the rosters being what they are, I'm already thinking ahead to WrestleMania next year. It's still very early, right? And it's early enough that I'm sure WWE hasn't even figured out, maybe beyond 1 or 2 matches, what the WrestleMania card is going to look like. We still don't even have confirmation of where WrestleMania is going to be held. They still haven't made it official that WrestleMania is being bumped from California to Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. That's what it's looking like. I know Vince McMahon very much wants to have people in the building, and frankly, I don't see any reason not to. If you have promotions like AEW that are running at partial capacity, then there's no reason the WWE can't find a way to safely do it in a giant outdoor stadium. So hopefully they will have a contingent of fans there, spaced out. I don't know how many thousand will be there, if they'll have 15,000, 20, 10,000, I don't know. But I know that's very much what Vince McMahon wants, and that is, I'm sure, what Vince McMahon will get in the state of Florida. It's basically a free-for-all anyway, so we'll see how that shakes out. But I was thinking about the WrestleMania card and kind of sketching a few things out, and I'm thinking about that main event. And I'm positive that Roman Reigns is going to headline WrestleMania. He will be defending the Universal Championship at WrestleMania. There's no reason for him to drop it before then. But who does he wrestle? What is the biggest match that you could do with Roman Reigns for the Universal title? And clearly the biggest match, the most marquee match you could do, and what's great about it also is you're not just doing it for the sake of doing a big match with a big name like this. You can fit this into the ongoing storyline. The whole tribal chief thing is The Rock. I mean, he and The Rock even have the same artwork on their body. They have the same tribal tattoo on their body. There's a story to tell. There is a story there to tell, and it would be a big deal for The Rock to go in there, as he says he would love to do. He would love to put over Roman Reigns. I don't really like him going out there and basically giving away the finish like that. But, yes, that would be the absolute biggest marquee match that you could do at WrestleMania, is Roman Reigns against The Rock. I still don't think it's going to happen. I think it was The Rock when he made that comment a few weeks ago, just kind of talking in the abstract, or he was asked a question about it, I think is what happened. But I just think this guy is so busy with movies and different projects, and whether it's an insurance thing, which has happened before, it's prevented him from doing stuff before. There have been a couple of different WrestleMania matches that Rock either committed to or was kind of originally booked for, that fell through because he couldn't do it. The Triple H match in Dallas at WrestleMania 32, which I wanted to see. One last match between those two. I was disappointed it didn't happen. And WrestleMania 34, I think the original idea kind of was that we would do Rock and Ronda against Triple H and Stephanie. Hey, it was Rock and Ronda in the segment together at WrestleMania 31. So it would have made sense to kind of eventually come back and do that as a tag, and instead they went with Kurt Angle. So it's a very risky proposition to assume that Rock is going to be able to do it, to book him out far in advance and then find out a month or two before that he can't do it. It could just collapse and wreck all of your plans. So I just don't know how practical it is. Now there's another name to consider here as well, which is Bill Goldberg. Bill Goldberg was one of many names. They had all different celebrities and stuff tweeting and on Instagram talking about the big SmackDown premiere on Fox. I think people were reading into that a little too closely, like they're already teasing a Rock, or a Goldberg Roman Reigns match. I think it was just Goldberg was one of many people who were either told to go ahead and please go ahead and put something out there on Instagram. I wouldn't read too much into that, but it does remind me that Goldberg has said that he is under contract at WWE for 2 more years through 2022. He's under contract for 2 matches per year. Now, at least one of those matches, is going to be for one of the Saudi Arabia shows, because I'm sure they're going to be back to Saudi Arabia next year. Those 2 matches could be for both Saudi Arabia shows, or it could be for one Saudi show and a WrestleMania match, which is what I think is more likely. Which makes it very likely that Goldberg is going to be on that WrestleMania 37 card next year. Now, the match they were going to do this year originally, before Roman pulled out, was Roman Reigns against Bill Goldberg. They had already started promoting the match on TV. They were talking trash to each other, and the battle of the spears, right? Goldberg has the spear, Roman Reigns has the spear. It's kind of a natural match. I don't know if the match would have been any good, but that was kind of a natural match to do at some point. Well, guess what? I could see them running it back the next year because they never had a chance to do it this year. Dynamic is a little bit different now with Roman as the champion and kind of the heel of the two. But could it be Roman Reigns against Bill Goldberg if they can't get The Rock? I could see them thinking that that's the next biggest marquee match that they could do. I would rather they not do that. I would rather they try to elevate one of their full-time talents into a spot like this. I actually could see Goldberg being brought in to do a match with Lars Sullivan. If they continue to put over Lars on TV as the unstoppable monster and there's no other big controversies that come up because it feels like there's something bubbling up that people are talking about every other week. But if they continue this big Lars Sullivan push, I mean, they're going to need somebody big to put him in the ring with, right? A big WrestleMania match. Goldberg could be that guy. I absolutely could see that being a WrestleMania match on the undercard. Look, this is the same Lars Sullivan who was rumored for a match with John Cena before he went MIA. Right? He had anxiety issues, supposedly. They had big plans for this guy. He probably was going to beat John Cena at WrestleMania. So I'm sure they're going to have a big Mania match in mind for him. Let Goldberg go off and do that. I'm thinking of Big E. I think that Big E has to be the favorite. He's my pick, my early pick, to win the Royal Rumble match. They've started pushing. Over the summer, they started this big singles push when Kofi went down with the injury. That backstage promo, Kofi coming out of the trainer's office. I got some bad news. The guy told me I'm going to be out for 6 weeks. Right? And Big E is all dejected and stuff. And Kofi gave him the pep talk and said, dude, this is your time. Don't be sad. I had my time. Woods is out right now. I'm going to be out. This is your time to shine. I can see the video package now. There's this great story to tell where Big E has been part of this faction for so long and he's been part of a team. And Kofi had his moment last year. And for years, people have said that, oh man, I hope Big E gets a push. I think Big E has the potential one day to be a world champion. I agree. And so that big push started over the summer, and he's won a whole bunch of matches. He had the feud with Sheamus. He won that feud. So I think a Big E win in the Royal Rumble. He's a new face that has not, been put over in that position before. We had a new face this year too. Drew McIntyre won the Royal Rumble. It was great to see somebody different, somebody new in that spot that they were really trying to elevate. And what happened? Drew McIntyre went on to WrestleMania and he won the championship. And he's been the champion ever since. That's how you put somebody new over. That's how you try to create and elevate a new star. Big E could be on SmackDown where Drew was on Raw this year. So I'd like to see Big E maybe go on, get that Royal Rumble win, and he can be promoted for the big match with the Tribal Chief at WrestleMania. That could be a Universal title match. And does Big E win the title? I don't know. I have to think about that. Maybe he doesn't win. Maybe they keep the Roman Reigns thing going for a little bit longer. But that's what I'd like to see the match be. If they can't get The Rock, you could do Roman Reigns against Big E. Now you got Drew McIntyre, I mentioned him. Who do you put in the ring with Drew McIntyre? Is Drew McIntyre even going to be WWE champion at WrestleMania? If he is, what's the big match or the biggest match that you could do with him? It's a little bit harder to come up with that person for Drew. It's easier to do that with Roman Reigns. Maybe that's because Roman is a heel, Drew's a babyface. They don't have a lot of strong heels right now on that Monday Night Raw roster. I don't know that you need to have a heel. I think you could put somebody like John Cena in that spot. And you talk about a story to tell, there's the chase for number 17. I was thinking about AJ Styles for this spot. But then I thought about Cena, and I was asked by somebody recently, I think it was on one of the Dynamite streams, I took a phone call from somebody who actually floated the idea of Cena, number 17, winning number 17 at WrestleMania. And I really wasn't into the idea. I kind of shot it down. I was like, nah, But he doesn't have to win number 17. I think that if you put him in there, if you have Cena come back, Cena was on Jimmy Fallon recently. He made it very clear that he is not done. He is not retired. He's taken a break from wrestling, but he is not retired. And there is that looming story of number 17. They built number 16 up as such a big deal. That's Ric Flair's number, which is actually not. Ric Flair, by his own admission, has won a lot more than 16 world titles. But for whatever reason in WWE, it just became part of the lore that he had won 16 world titles. So 16 became the number. And Cena has already tied that. So winning number 17 in WWE storylines is this big landmark accomplishment. I think a lot of people expect Cena will get there one day. Maybe this is it. Maybe Cena comes back and he says, you know what? I'm impressed by what I've seen from Drew. This is exactly what I wanted to see, as I stepped away. Hungry young talents going for it. And then just build the story from there. Maybe Drew wants to challenge Cena. Maybe Cena's perfectly content not coming back, and Drew can talk him out of it. Can talk him back into the ring and say, I've always wanted to have this match with John Cena. I want to prove that I can beat the best. If I can't do it, then you know what? John Cena becomes number 17 World Heavyweight Champion, but I think I can beat you, John. It could be a simple story even like that. And I think that's a big match to promote for WrestleMania. I mentioned Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey a little bit earlier. Becky Lynch is going to be having a child in December. There are reports that Vince McMahon wants to ideally have her back in time for WrestleMania. I don't know how credible these reports are, but that was one of the reports floating around this week. I don't know how practical it is to have this woman who is going to have a child in December to get her back in ring shape in time for a match in April. Well, I guess actually WrestleMania is in March. And it's not just the match in March. You've got to get her back on TV well before March to start promoting the match. Is Mania going to be the first match back? Is she going to be wrestling on TV earlier than that? How practical is that? If the woman is having a child, that she can get herself back in the ring shape she needs to be in to have that big match at WrestleMania. I don't know how practical that is. I'm sure it's doable if she, works her ass off, but I don't know how practical that is. I wouldn't rush her to get back. I don't think WrestleMania needs Becky Lynch. If she misses WrestleMania and comes back 3 months later, so be it. But supposedly Vince McMahon wants to have her back for a match with Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey is under contract to WWE at least through WrestleMania. We don't know if she's extended that contract. We don't know if WrestleMania would be the kind of end date for her deal. Is she coming back? Is she not coming back? What we do know is that she has been photographed, and it's been on social media, a couple of different times recently in a wrestling ring, in a gym, training with Roddy Piper's daughter, Teal Piper. We saw a photo just recently of her in the ring with her husband, Travis Brown, and James Storm, former Impact World Champion, the man who said he had a deal in place to come make his WWE main roster debut earlier this year after WrestleMania, but because of COVID, the whole thing fell through. It's a picture of her in the ring, I presume training with James Storm. Well, what is she training for? I thought Ronda Rousey was going away to start a family. Apparently that didn't happen. And now she's back in the ring, teasing a possible return to the ring, and WrestleMania is not that far away. So, of course, that gets people talking. We never did get the singles match. We never got the one-on-one match between Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch. I don't think it would be very hard to restart that feud. Start that trash talking on Twitter all over again. That's what got a lot of people excited the first time. And then they turned it into a triple threat match. We never got that one-on-one match. So if Ronda was going to come back, I think it all boils down to how quickly can Becky make it back. That would be a huge match. No doubt about it. That would be a huge match to have on the WrestleMania card. I'd put that on my card. Randy Orton and Edge seems pretty apparent that when Edge comes back, there's probably going to be one last match. We're probably going to get Orton Edge 3 if Edge can make it back in time from his injury. And don't forget, Randy Orton could still win the WWE Championship. Randy Orton has one more match. He has a Hell in a Cell match next Sunday, a week from today, with Drew McIntyre. Randy Orton has lost a lot of matches recently. Could Randy Orton win the championship next Sunday? Yeah, he could. Absolutely. And that would feed into this rumor that one idea they've considered is having Orton as the champion, and when Edge comes back, Edge beats Orton for the title at WrestleMania. I don't want to see that. There is absolutely no need to make that a championship match at WrestleMania. I don't know what stipulation you might want to go with. The stipulation I would go with is this is their final match. They can't have any more matches after this. And Edge can get that big win. He can put a stamp on their feud, and Edge can hopefully stay healthy, and he can move on and wrestle some people we've never seen him wrestle before. 3 matches with Randy Orton is enough. We don't need more than that. I don't even know that we need the third, frankly, but I'm sure they want to do it. So I think Orton Edge 3 is a natural match for WrestleMania. Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan is a match that I would book for that show. If Rollins is going to be getting paternity leave, he's going to probably be gone for a little while soon. I cannot imagine him missing WrestleMania. I'm sure he'll be back by then. They were already teasing a possible future match between the two of them on Friday night. I think that would be a great match on the undercard at WrestleMania. Daniel Bryan one-on-one against Seth Rollins in a big stadium show. You don't think those two guys would go out there and kill it? They had plenty of great matches together, tag matches and all kinds of stuff back in the Shield days when Bryan was feuding with them. So I'd love to see them go one-on-one in Mania. Then there's the question of Brock Lesnar. Does Brock Lesnar come back? He always seems to come back. He always seems to never leave. Now I guess he's not under contract. But I said earlier, Brock Lesnar has not missed a WrestleMania show in something like 7 years. 7 or 8 years. I find it hard to believe that he won't be on the card next year. That they won't be able to entice him back with a big money offer to come back, even if it's just for a WrestleMania match. They didn't need Brock Lesnar at an empty performance center. They didn't need Brock Lesnar in the Thunderdome. But if they have a big stadium show and actual living, breathing people in the building and it's WrestleMania, you don't think they're not going to want Brock Lesnar on that show? Of course they are. And where's he going to go? What else is he going to do? He's going to go to AEW? Give me a break. He ain't going to AEW. He might use AEW as a bargaining chip, but Brock Lesnar ain't going to AEW. And I don't see him going back to UFC either. So what do you do? What match do you do if you don't do Lesnar and Reigns, which I would rather not see? We've seen that before. What would you do with Brock Lesnar? There's 2 names that come up. And one is a name that's come up for years, off and on, and that's Bobby Lashley. And I've been hot and cold on the idea of doing that match. I heard Lashley recently, just the other day. I don't know where he was, but if he was on the bump or what show he was on. But he was just, at home, probably looking in the camera doing Zoom or whatever, and just very matter-of-factly, kind of out of character, I guess, maybe, just talking about how he has always wanted to wrestle Brock. And he wants to fight Brock, wrestling MMA, it doesn't matter to him. And just listening to him talk about it, I definitely think that there is a way that you can build a match like that as being a big match. Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley. Someone we've never seen Brock in the ring with before. He's got every bit of the size that Brock has. They both come from that. They both have that MMA fighting experience. And the amateur wrestling experience as well. They're very evenly matched in that regard. So I think Lesnar and Lashley could be a big match at WrestleMania. The other name I think about for Brock Lesnar is Keith Lee. We got a taste of it in the Royal Rumble this year. Even when Lee walked out, remember the look on Brock Lesnar's face? He get that big smile on his face. He looks over at Paul Heyman. Look at this big boy, he called him. He called him Big Boy. And Keith Lee got some offense in on Brock before he ultimately got dumped out. I'd love to see a Brock Lesnar-Keith Lee match. I'd like to see how that goes. So I would be fine with either one of those. But here's the question I would pose to you, though. Does it diminish Brock Lesnar to bring him back coming off a loss? Because he lost to Drew McIntyre. That was the last time we saw him. If the next match that we see Brock Lesnar in is WrestleMania, and it's against someone like Keith Lee, does it diminish Brock to lose again, coming off a loss? Or would it make more sense for Brock to win? In a competitive match, Keith Lee comes out of it looking like a beast. He comes out of it looking like he held his own, but he just fell, he fell to the F5. Does that hurt Keith Lee, or does it hurt Brock Lesnar more coming off a loss to lose again? You don't want to beat Brock Lesnar too many times in a row, because then whatever is left that is special about him, he just completely loses that. And that's happened to other guys over the years. Jericho and some of these top guys who have been generally very selfless, they'll lose a lot of matches and they lose a little bit of that luster, because you don't want to lose too many times, because then you just become the guy, oh, Brock's going to go in there just to put this guy over. He's going to go in there to put that guy over. I still think Brock has to win more than he loses. But does 2 losses in a row really diminish him, or is it not that big of a deal? That would be my question. And then just 2 other matches I kind of scribbled in here for the SmackDown Women's title. Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. That's a WrestleMania-worthy match. I would love to see those 2 in the ring together. I just don't see how they can stretch the feud with Bayley to get to Mania. That was my hope. My hopes have dimmed. My hopes have faded on doing that. They're going to do the match next Sunday. Sasha may well win the belt there. I don't think at this point, I don't think they can extend it that long. Otherwise, Sasha Bayley would have been the natural match. So Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair would be a hot match for WrestleMania. And on the Raw side, maybe do something with The Fiend and Jeff Hardy, which is a match I thought if Fiend were still the champion, I thought maybe we would get a Fiend Jeff Hardy program on SmackDown. That's still a match that hasn't been done, given how weird The Fiend is and how weird we know Jeff Hardy could be. Maybe they can come up with some kind of wacky stipulation for it. But I think as an undercard match of WrestleMania, Jeff Hardy and The Fiend is a match that hasn't been seen before that could make a lot of sense. So again, that's my very early kind of sketched out card and thoughts about WrestleMania. You guys can chime in with your own thoughts. What do you think? What do you have to add to it? And I would love to get your feedback.